So before we start this morning, there's a number of things to tell you. First of all, welcome. And uh, I had been thinking at the beginning of the program, because we usually do this thing called requesting training when people come to stay at the Abbey for a while. And we usually do that at the beginning of EML. And I remembered it at the beginning of EML and then got busy with everything else. So, and then Tukje very kindly wrote a note reminding, because she came to the EML program a couple of years ago and found that quite beneficial to do the request for training and get a little bit of training in there. And so it kind of it's saying, I want to be trained instead of I want to be pampered. We don't have a ceremony for I want to be pampered, because I think that one just comes along anyway. So we'll do that today. Then the other thing is I was completely blown away yesterday. Some of you have met Kenru online. He's in the upper right-hand corner. Okay. That's interesting to say instead of he sits here. That's why he's in the upper right-hand corner. Okay. So I've known Kenru for many, many years, and also his family, and he's been involved in arranging teachings, in Malaysia and so on when I've traveled. And he always gets the whole family together to offer Sangha dana. And it's such a moving thing because he has quite a big family, and they all come together and and pitch in and then offer lunch to the Sangha, whatever Sangha happens to be there at that time. And it's really beautiful because they have such a kind and generous heart, and they take such delight in giving, which is so much part of the practice, to take delight in giving and sharing. So we got an email that his family wants to, it started out like this. That the family wanted to offer lunch dana to everybody at EML because they were really impressed with people's virtuous motivations and aspirations. And so the family wanted to offer. Then there's a group in Singapore, because Kenru lives in Singapore now, and they're called Friends of Sravasti Abbey Singapore, or FOSAs. And they follow the Friday night teachings. So last night, what the teachings were had, it was Saturday morning in Singapore. They meet and do that. And then Friday night, which is Thursday in the middle of the night for us, they also meet and do some practice together. So Kenru, as I understand it, correct me if I'm mistaken, Kenru, Kenru mentioned to them that the family was offering Sangha dana for the EML course. And then all the FOSA people said, oh, we want to offer Sangha dana too. And so then they decided to offer lunch from now all the way through. My birthday is in the middle of September, through the time of my birthday. So that's like almost 2 months, and or 8 weeks, 7, 8 weeks, something like that, with special meals on the day of the ordination on the 11th, and also on the 22nd, which is in Chinese culture, the Ulambana, okay, or it's often called the Hungry Ghost Festival, but Buddhists practice it in a different way than the traditional way of practicing it. So and so all these people together with their incredibly generous kind hearts want to offer. And it's really mind-blowing when you think of it, because these are people, I mean, like many of you who go to work every day and work very hard and then choose to share what you earn from your hard work with other people. So that started yesterday, I think. Yeah, and you're going to keep the sign up there every day, yeah, so that we know who is dedicating the meal, who is sponsoring the meal, so that we can dedicate for their welfare and well-being, and not just long life and good health, because if you have, lots of people ask us to pray for their long life and good health, but if you have long life and good health and nothing else, your life is not very meaningful. So I always add on prayers that they did not request. Yeah, which is that they all meet the Dharma and they meet fully qualified teachers and they follow the Dharma well, make that connection and have an open mind and learn the Dharma well and practice and attain realizations. So I add that part on too, because if you use your life like that, then having a long life and good health is worthwhile. Okay, so I'll tell you more about Ulambana when we come to it. Okay, some stories to tell about it. Well, it looks like I'm going to tell you right now. So, as soon as I say that, I remember my experience, because I had 1987. Yeah, 1987. I had gone to Tibet and I was doing pilgrimage in Tibet for 3 months. I had come back and I was going to go do retreat in the mountains in Nepal. I had some place to go where I could do retreat. And right before I was going to leave, I got a message from my teacher saying, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go straight to Singapore. Yeah. And so much for doing retreat. I packed my bag and I went to Singapore. I had no idea anything about Singapore. One of the nuns in my ordination group when I took Bhikshuni ordination in Taiwan was from Singapore, but that's it. And so I wound up staying at her temple. And my teacher wanted me to teach a group of students there. So I arrived during the 7th month. Yeah. So here I come in, Westerner. And it's the 7th month. If you've been in Singapore in the 7th month, it's really interesting because the ancestor worship type of philosophy is that in that month, the gates of hell are open and all your relatives can come out and all of the hungry ghosts come out. And so you want to make offerings to them. Yeah. And I find this quite interesting because you love your relatives, but as soon as they die, you think they go to hell or the hungry ghost realm and, they might harm you or something like that. Anyway, so you want to give dana, to these beings who are out for a certain period of time. So in the traditional ancestor worship, usually during the year, you burn money, not real money. You buy money to burn, and the money you buy is from the Bank of Hell. Yeah, and then you burn the money, and the idea is that then it goes to your relatives in hell, and they can use it in hell. So You burn money, you burn computers, paper computers. You have to buy all these things. You burn cars, you burn, whatever you think your relatives are going to need or like when they're in hell, or maybe some aircon. Yeah. and the hungry ghost realm. So there's all sorts of burning going on. And in addition, inside the temples, and although the Buddhists don't believe this per se, it's a Chinese custom, and it's a way to get the people to come to the Buddhist temples and maybe learn some Buddhism. Inside the temples, then there are rows upon rows, of tables with food in front of them that the relatives bring. And who's sitting at those tables? Effigies. Yeah. So you have effigies of your relatives who are there, and you offer food to the effigies, the idea being that then it goes to the ancestors and they have some good food. Okay. In Buddhism, they changed that a bit, because there's a sutra that called the Ulambana Sutra. Okay. And it's only found it seems like in the Chinese canon. I don't think the Tibetans have it. I've never seen this kind of thing in the Tibetan culture. They have other ways of doing things for their relatives and ancestors and so on. So in the Ulambana Sutra, let me see, there's a few different versions of it. Okay, but the version here is Moggallana, who we know was the Buddha's foremost disciple in terms of the super knowledges, the supernormal powers, the clairvoyance and such. So he gained those powers, and then he used them to find his mother. And he found, because his mother had died, and so he found her in the hungry ghost realm. And she was wasted. She was, he tried to give her a bowl of rice to eat so she wouldn't be so hungry. But being a hungry ghost, if they try and take food, they can't get it in their mouth, or if they get it in their mouth, it burns all the way down. And, it's incredible suffering for them. So Moggallana then asked the Buddha for help. How can he help his mother? And the Buddha explained that one can help your present deceased parents and your ancestors up to 7 generations before by making offerings to the Sangha on the Pravarana day. And Pravarana is the end of the Varsa, the rains retreat. Here we do the Varsa and Pravarana. We do the snows retreat here in the winter, but in India during monsoon, you do it there. And then Pravarana is the ceremony at the end where you clear everything, and I won't go into that. Okay, so that's on the 7th day of the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. Okay, and so the idea is that you offer to the Sangha, and then the merit you create from offering to the Sangha, which is incredibly great merit, because they're people who are keeping precepts. And then you dedicate that for your relatives. And then that can help them to be liberated from that rebirth, and to also have to help them so that they can receive food and ingest it and not be so starving, starve. So, so people do that, and they make offering to the Sangha on the full moon of the 7th lunar month, and then dedicate for their relatives. So that's how this whole thing started, with Kenru knowing that that was a special day and a day to really make a lot of merit and dedicate it for one's relatives. Okay, so that's the news. Yeah, and also when I use the word Sangha here, I should explain what I mean by it, because it's, as with many words, when they come to the West, the meaning gets changed. And yeah, so by Sangha, okay, the Sangha we take refuge in is the Sangha jewel. Okay, and the Sangha jewel are those beings who are Aryas, who have direct realization of emptiness, the nature of reality. Those are our objects of refuge. Okay, it's very important. Those are the objects, one of the three jewels that are our objects of refuge, in addition to the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel. So the representative of the Sangha jewel is the monastic community, 4 or more fully ordained monastics. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why it's important to have full ordination. Yeah, there's many reasons, but this is one of them. So they are the representative, and you don't say that one monastic is the Sangha jewel. No, it has to be the community. Yeah. And why the community? Because the community of Sangha does certain practices together that the Buddha prescribed for us to do. And by doing those practices together, it makes the land where they're located into a central land. And you'll remember in the meditation on the precious human life, one of the 10 freedoms is living in a central land. Okay. And then that goes into, well, why is it important to have a Sangha community in a place? What does the Sangha community do? Okay, and I'll explain that in a minute. But first I want to clarify, because often in the West, the word Sangha is used to mean anybody who goes to a Buddhist center. And that's how people talk about it in the West. It is not the way the word Sangha is used in the East. Okay, Sangha in the East refers to either the community, or it sometimes refers to an individual monastic. They're a Sangha member, okay? Or the offering is for the Sangha, it's for the monastic community. So why, why isn't anybody or everybody who goes to a Buddhist center called Sangha? Okay, why not? Well, when you first go to a Buddhist center, you're a baby beginner. You don't know anything about the Dharma. You don't keep precepts. You're not even sure if you're a Buddhist. And so sometimes you'll hear in Dharma centers, oh, the Sangha are all our friends and the Dharma friends, and these are the people we take refuge in. But some of those Dharma friends at the centers, okay, their ethics are questionable. Yeah, there are some centers where people do the Dharma and then they all go out and have a drink at the pub afterwards. Okay, or they all go out and dancing, on some other day, or they all do, they're sleeping with each other and changing partners, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. Anybody who's lived in a Dharma center knows this. My goodness. Yeah. So, how are those people going to be your refuge object when you want to attain awakening. Yeah. When the first practice that we do in Buddhism, the overall practice can be said to be the three higher trainings. The first one is ethical conduct. So, how can people who do not keep ethical conduct be your object of refuge on the spiritual path? Yeah. So I'm not saying all lay Buddhists are like this. I'm just saying when you have a Dharma center with all sorts of people coming, they're at various levels of practice and they do different kinds of actions. Okay. So if you rely on the monastic Sangha, how I use the word Sangha, yeah, these are people who are holding precepts. So at least you know that if they are keeping their precepts well, they have good ethical conduct and as a basis for their Dharma practice. And then they can really help guide you. So if you go to a Sangha member and you're confused about, well, should I do this? Like I was talking yesterday, this under the table kind of business deal that's going to make you a lot of money so that you can make more dana. So, uh, yeah, or you have things like this. If you go to somebody who's not keeping precepts, they may be looking at things from the viewpoint of this life, and that's the advice they will give you. Yeah, if you go to a Sangha member for advice, they will hopefully, if they're keeping their precepts well, will give you advice according to the Dharma and what the Buddha said. So you can rely on that kind of advice more. Then, okay, back to the rhetorical question I posed before. What is the importance of having a Sangha community? Why can't I just be a Sangha member by myself, especially if I go off and find my cave, with central heating and aircon and my refrigerator and stove and everything else? um, you know, why can't I be am I not considered a Sangha member? Or if I have a family, yeah, oh, why not? Okay. Well, monasteries uh, and groups of people, as we know, groups of people can do things that an individual cannot. Yeah, it's very, very clear. We may have so many good intentions and positive ideas, but alone we can't carry them out. We need to be with a group of people. Yeah. So if you have a monastery, one of the chief functions, I think, of a group of people living in ethical conduct is they pose a question to society. They act as society's conscience. Okay, because society is out there running after all the sense pleasure, all the status, all the praise and approval and gadgets and all this kind of stuff. And Sangha members are saying, do you really need that? Okay, how do we say that? Well, aside from our mouth, by how we live. Okay, and this is why it's so important for Sangha members to have simple lifestyle. Yeah. So we show by the way we live. So, for example, here in the Abbey, that we care about climate change. We care about the environment. So, those of you who've worked in the kitchen, you see that so much stuff gets recycled or composted, and there's very little that is actually thrown out compared to if you don't do that kind of separation of your garbage and food waste and such. We show by our building materials that we use. We show our care for the climate by the fact that we don't jump in a car and run out to buy whatever we want whenever we want it. We show it by the fact that nobody here who is ordained has their own car. Okay. Well, you do, but it's for a special reason, but so we don't live in the same way that other people live. We refrain from just, oh, I feel like having this, let's go to the store and buy it. And then you wind up driving here and driving there, and you stop off, and have some McDonald's French fries, and then maybe you catch a movie, and uh, yeah. I mean, if you live a lay life, you go out and that's what you do. If you're here, people notice how long you're gone. Yeah. And they notice if you have McDonald's wrappers that you left in the car. So you keep your precepts, and you show a good example in that way. We all wear the same clothes. We have the same haircut. Yeah. Now, out in society, I mean, God forbid, and I'm sure he forbid at some point, that that you wear the same clothes twice to an important gathering. Yeah. Melania Trump never did that. Yeah. Jill Biden is wearing the same thing twice. Can you imagine? Okay, we wear the same thing every day. And my niece, when she was 7 years old, I mean, at the age of 7 already, was saying, why do you wear the same clothes every day? Because already at age 7, she had been taught you do not wear the same clothes every day. Yeah, you have to show a variety, and you have to wear nice clothes that show off how you look, that, make you appear impressive. And I wasn't doing that. She wanted to know why. Okay. So just by that, hair. Yeah, no hair. When I go into high schools to give talks, this is one of the chief questions that the kids ask. Why don't you have any hair? Why do you shave your hair? Okay, that was another thing I guess God was supposed to forbid. But yeah, my mother did too, but um, okay. So, and then I explained, because I'm not trying to look good on the outside. I'm not trying to impress people with how I look on the outside, because anyway, we're all getting older and uglier. Yeah, right? Yeah, no, anybody here getting younger and more attractive? We all idolize youth, and nobody's becoming younger and more attractive. We're all getting older and uglier. So what are we trying to hide? By dyeing our hair, or, getting Botox, or, who knows what. We're trying to impress people and make them like us, and, make ourselves look good. And so I explained to these high school kids, I don't want people to like me because of how I look, because that's not going to be a genuine friendship. I want people to like me because of what I am inside. Yeah. So I am working for inner beauty rather than outer beauty. And by this point, they're all like, what? What? I mean, you remember high school and what it was like. And it goes on, it's not just in high school, is it? It continues on after that. And they're just flabbergasted that somebody does not care about their looks and trying to impress people by how they look. So this is the kind of way that Sangha affects society. We're saying, do you really need to look good in order to feel good about yourself? Do you need to be attractive outside to feel good about yourself? Do you need to look good in order to impress people? What kind of people are you seeking as friends? The people who like external beauty, or the people who are beautiful inside because they have good values and a kind heart? Okay, so a Sangha community asks those questions. Also, just by living, just by being there, yeah. And also, okay, I mean, it's quite interesting when you travel, people kind of notice. I mean, you get stared at, yeah, but then people come up and say, "Do you know the Dalai Lama?" Yeah. I was in Switzerland one time, somebody came up and said, "Do you believe in rebirth?" You have all sorts of people coming up to you for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. And some people, I say I'm a Buddhist nun, and they, "Oh, I thought you were something religious. What does Buddhism believe in?" Then you have an avenue. You can open up and, talk a little bit about compassion and kindness and so on. Okay. So, yes, you get stared at, but it also provides a door to talk to other people about something meaningful. Mhm. Also, by having a community, then the lay people know when they need a boost in their Dharma practice, where they can go to practice together with other people. And that's really important. Yeah. You're smiling. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, you know where you can go, where there's people who understand your spiritual aspiration, who welcome you with open arms and say, "Come practice with us." So there's a place where you can go where people understand you. Yeah. And you know that you can go there anytime you want to. I mean, you have to call in advance, and please don't show up at 2 a.m. Um, we had somebody who did once. Yeah. He came and, set up his tent and 2 a.m, and then you went out at 6 or 7 and said, "Hello, can I help you?" Um, yeah. So better to come when, not in the middle of the night. Uh, but people know there's a place they can go. Even if you don't go there, there's a place where people are practicing the four immeasurables, where people are learning about emptiness, where people are trying to generate bodhicitta. Okay. Now, what about a lay teacher? You know, well, it's a bit more difficult because if a lay teacher has a family, you can't just go and knock on the door and say, "Yeah, I need some spiritual counseling," or "I want to sit here and practice. Can I use your meditation hall?" Your meditation room, because it's a private house and their families there. And maybe, they come to the door and, they have a kid and their pet dog, and they're in the middle of cooking dinner and the kids are screaming. So it's a different kind of ambience. The lay teachers can't provide that ambience. Dharma centers aren't open all the time. Yeah. So you have to go at specific times. Yeah. So the Sangha um, has a very special function in society, I think. And that it's an important function that nobody else can really serve. And traditionally, the existence of the Dharma has depended on the fourfold community okay, fully ordained monks, fully ordained nuns, and then male and female lay practitioners with the 5 precepts. Okay, so you need to have those communities, but especially the monastic community. Uh, it's the people who have more time to devote to studying the teachings, putting them into practice, being of service to the community. Yeah, you don't have to worry about a family. And so we really encourage people when they ordain, do not get involved in all your family dramas. You are a renounced person now. And there's a part in the ordination ceremony where you actually say goodbye to your family. Yeah. And it's a very important part, I think. Sure, you're always your parents' son or daughter. Yeah. You're always that. You still love your parents. You can go visit them. But in your mind has shifted, and it's the mind of a left home person. Okay. A person who has left home, a person who is not interested in gathering a house and a car and a spouse and kids and reputation and paychecks and a 401k and whatever else people get. Okay, so you're showing a different way of living. Yeah. And that gives you, like I said, it gives you more time to study and practice, more time to actually talk to people about the Dharma and serve the Dharma. Okay. So, how do we serve the Dharma? By serving the monastic community. And that's why it's called offering service, because the monastic community does not exist in the middle of space. Yeah, we still need to wash dishes and vacuum floors and pull knapweed and get rid of thistles and all that kind of stuff. So everybody contributes, and there's so many ways to offer service to the lay community, to the monastic community, and everybody's going to have a different way of doing it. Yeah. So, and we need all the different ways of doing it. So sometimes the teacher gets more attention because they're kind of the public figure of the monastery. But the monastery's functioning depends equally on the people who vacuum the floor and wash the dishes and pull the knapweed. Okay? Because if you don't have people doing all the different functions, then you can't spread the Dharma. You can't encourage the Dharma. Yeah. So every function is needed, whether you're sitting behind a camera and a screen or doing something on a Zoom meeting or editing a a talk afterwards and posting it online. You may not get your name under it because the talk is by so and so, and you're the person who edited and posted it, and they don't put your name. But what are you looking for? Are you looking for recognition? Or are you looking to make the Dharma accessible to people? Are you looking to serve the public, to serve the Dharma? Yeah, what are we looking for? And so here, when we see, well, it really would be kind of nice if they say edited by and posted by, why don't they do that? I mean, it's no sweat off of anybody's, fingertips to type a few extra words and put credit where credit is due. Yeah. And then we see our mind thinking like that. And sometimes the mouth follows it. And then in the stand-up meeting, you say, how about if we also gave credit to the people who edit and posted it, And then the other people, because we have a stand-up meeting every morning, then the other people say, well, but I vacuumed the floor, and, I built the woodshed and I stoked the fire. So I need some credit too. Why doesn't my name go there? And then you begin to realize, oh, maybe I'm a little attached to reputation. Just a little bit, just a little bit. I want a good reputation, to be known as somebody important in the community. Yeah, I want people to know my name. What in the world is your name? What value is your name? Why do we think we're a big shot? Because somebody knows our name. A name is words, it's sound. That's it. Okay. But I want people to know, oh, my name. They don't need to know me. They just need to know my name and have a very good impression of what a fantastic person I am and how knowledgeable and kind and what a good practitioner and so on and so forth I am. They don't need to know me. They just need to know my name and my reputation, because that's who I am, and I want people to know me like that. Because if people know me like that, then my life has meaning. Yeah. Does your life have meaning because a lot of people know your name? Yeah. Does people knowing your name get you a good rebirth? Does it get you closer to liberation? Does it get you enlightened? What does people knowing your name do for you? Nothing. Nothing. What is it? Yeah, people know your name. Oh, I know, Tupton vacuum cleaner. She's the one who vacuums at the Abbey. She's so important. And I see the picture of Tupton vacuum cleaner on the Abbey website. And she looks so good and she inspires me in the Dharma. But of course the picture was, 10 years ago when you didn't have so many wrinkles and gray hair and so on. And it shows your picture when you were smiling, not when you were like, I'm tired of vacuuming. Yeah. And then everybody says, Tupton vacuum cleaner. Oh, this nun is so fantastic. So good. Everybody should pray to Tupton vacuum for blessings, Okay, what good does that do you? Yeah. Why do we want to be known? It's so crazy. When you really think about it, it's so ridiculous. And other people thinking, oh, wow, look, Tupton vacuum cleaner. Or maybe I should switch. How about Tupton dishwasher? Or who wants to be another one? Tupton harmonizer. Okay. Yeah. Tupton harmonizer. She harmonizes everything except her own mind. Okay. So, and Tupton harmonizers are big deals at the Abbey. You have some power when you are a Tupton harmonizer, because then you can tell people, no, you cannot change the schedule from this to this. That makes you powerful. Wow, what power. Yeah. Tupton harmonizer can make you pull knapweed when you don't feel like pulling knapweed. She has that power. Wow. Yeah. I'm duped and harmonized. Yeah. So what? So what? That gets you a good rebirth? Does it get you liberation? Does it get you awakening? Does it bring anybody to the Dharma? Our arrogance does nothing except create negative karma and make us look like a jerk. Okay, then you have duped and jerk. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, duped and jerk who thinks she's a big deal. Look at me. I'm duped and jerk. Yeah. People write letters saying, thank you for the wonderful teaching you give. And I think I'm so important. Actually, it's the Buddha's teaching. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just repeating what my teacher said. But these people love me for it. So I must be important, maybe as important as the Buddha, you know, even though everything I write in every single book is plagiarized from the Buddha or plagiarized from Shantideva. None of it is due to me. But people say, thank you. And this is fantastic. And I try and say, well, it's His Holiness's teaching. But you wrote it. Well, so what? I wasn't the person who thought about it. Yeah. I'm the lackey at the computer who misspells everything. Yeah. But it's so interesting how we all want to be important. And what does important mean? It means other people know our name and other people have a good image of us. What is an image? I want to have a good image. What exactly are you wanting? What is a good image? This is something to ask yourself in your meditation. I want a good image. What in the world is a good image? What you come down to, or at least what I came down to, you may find something different. What I came down to is a good image is other people's thoughts. Okay? Other people have to have good thoughts about me. Now, do I know what other people's thoughts about me are? No. But still, they have to have good thoughts about me. They cannot have bad thoughts about me. That's another thing, God forbid. Okay. They have to have good thoughts, as if what other people think of me is the indicator of my value as a human being. Yeah. As if other people's thoughts are going to get me a good rebirth or make me awakened. Are other people's thoughts going to do that for me? Are they get other people's thoughts? Are they going to make me realize bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness? No, other people's thoughts don't do anything for me. Do other people's thoughts make me healthy? Do they give me long life so I can practice more? No, they don't do anything for me. So why am I clinging to that? Why do I think that my life is worthwhile if other people's thoughts are in a certain way about me? Anyway, what are other people's thoughts? They're blips of energy that go through other people's minds for a short moment. Yeah. I want a good reputation. Everybody has to think I'm wonderful. Yeah. How long do you think other people spend in a day thinking about you and your reputation? Yeah. Well, to get an idea of that, how long every day do you spend thinking about other people and their reputation? Yeah. Do you spend most of your waking hours thinking about what you think about other people? Maybe to the person that you're very attached with, who is your object of refuge in the worldly way. You think about that person a lot. Oh, your eyes are like diamonds and your teeth are like pearls. Well, so what? Okay. But, how often, how much time do we spend in a day thinking about what we think about other people and thinking about their reputation? Not much time, do we? But we depend on other people's thoughts about us to find value in our life. How much time do they spend thinking about us every day? Yeah, when you all woke up this morning, did you think about me? I don't think so. Yeah. Who did you think about all day? Yeah. You thought about yourself. Yeah. So what we think about other people is really, we don't give it much thought. We are far too occupied with me, I, my, and mine. Okay. So being somebody subject to birth, aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and defilements, what do I take refuge in? Somebody else who is subject to birth, aging, sick, death, sorrow, and defilements. Am I nuts? Yes. What in the world are we taking refuge in? People and objects that are just as confused as we are. And we think that makes us important. Yeah. The Olympics are going on, and I know everybody here is sacrificing so much because you're not watching the Olympics, even though you really want to, And this one guy, I can't even remember his name, but you want to know his name. He won another, I don't know how many gold medals, but he's gotten a bunch of them for swimming. It's not Michael Phelps, he got his gold medals. He's off somewhere else. Nobody talks about him anymore. Unless to compare this new guy. What's his name? See, I'm not very good with names. Yeah. So it starts with a C. Big deal. Okay, maybe some of you online are watching the Olympics. You know who won the big swimming thing? Yeah, no, you don't know? Oh, but he's so famous now, and they showed, something online of his family, he's on the screen because he's in Tokyo going like this. And his family's there going, screaming. I don't know where they are. They're Americans somewhere, who knows? And they're screaming. And then he wins. And, his wife falls back on the sofa and his sister falls back. And they're all hugging each other and screaming. Yeah. And that means your life is worthwhile because you can swim faster than anybody else. Well, like I said, Michael Phelps did that. Yeah, but he's old hat now. Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna compare this new guy to Phelps. I don't know who was faster. Yeah. And then some other American woman, she won another gold medal in swimming too. Yeah. And then another American won the gold medal in gymnastics after Simone Biles didn't participate. Then another woman did. She is Hmong, from the Hmong minority, yeah, which is a group of minority people living in South China, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, that kind of area. And a lot of the Hmongs fought with the Americans when the Americans had a war in Laos that nobody's supposed to know about during the Vietnam War. And then they came over to America afterwards. And so she took the gold in gymnastics for, I don't know which event, one of the events. And again, they showed her family, because the swimming one, then they could see, oh, he's almost there. He's in front of everybody. Oh, yippee. So they were screaming the whole time, that he's swimming. Then with her, they're watching her, I mean, what these gymnasts do is totally amazing, and watching her, and they're very quiet. And then you have to wait until the judge gives the numbers. So the whole family, the whole Hmong community is sitting there just quiet, watching the screen. And then you hear the voice of the announcer saying, I don't know what number it was, the score is da da da. And then everybody screams, and they're jumping up and down and hugging each other and screaming. And yeah, and her parents were so proud of her. Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, question what society is doing and what we, I was watching this and thinking it's so nice to see people happy for once. You usually don't see people on the internet being so happy. So it's nice to see them happy. But what are they happy about? Is this really something meaningful in the long run? It's meaningful in the short run if your aim in this life is to have your name known and maybe get some, I mean, her whole community. I was very happy for the Hmong community because it's, it, how does it gives them some recognition in the broader society. And, and it also illustrates, if you come to America, your kid can become an Olympic star. That's something nice, for people to know. If you come to America, you can also wind up in the slums or not be admitted or locked out. Okay. But, in the long term, and this is what I'm getting at, what are our values? What is our perspective on life? Do we have the Buddhist worldview that is looking long term at what is meaningful and valuable? Or do we have the worldly view that is looking at just what gets us a good name and recognition and wealth in this life? Okay. And the reason we ask this question again and again and again is because this is the dividing line between Dharma practice and not Dharma practice. Whether we're involved with the 8 worldly concerns and looking only at the happiness of this life, or whether our view is broader than this life. Yeah. A broader view doesn't mean you ignore this life, okay? But our chief purpose is something way beyond having a good reputation, way beyond having a little piece of metal. Yeah? You get that little piece of metal, and then your life is valuable because you got a piece of metal. I don't even know if it's real gold. No? What is it? Gold plated? Maybe even gold spray paint. Yeah, that's what we do for our statues. Yeah, some of them are gold plated, many of them are spray painted. But, So there's the short-term view, the long-term view. Yeah? So what really in our hearts are we looking for? What are we looking at? Because after we die, okay, what happens after we die? You work so much for a good reputation and wealth and status and approval and so on, and material goods in this life. But when you die, do any of those things come with you? Even your relatives buy banknotes from the bank of hell and burn them so that you'll receive them. Does that benefit you? It helps the mind of the relatives who feel like they're giving you something. Do you receive the banknotes? No. What happens to your reputation? Oh, well, I was so well known. They wrote about me in the news. And when I died, they put my body in the, in state in the center of one of those big government buildings. And then everybody comes walking around sniffing, oh, such a great leader, such a great person. Yeah. And where are you to enjoy all of that? Finally, everybody's praising you and appreciating you. Yeah, they only do that when you die. When you're alive, they're always picking at you and finding fault. You die, oh, so wonderful, kind-hearted, never turned anybody away, always taking the shirt off their back for somebody else. Isn't it? When somebody dies, you would think they were all Buddhas, the way people talk about them. Of course, there's another group of people who talk about them in a different way, but we won't talk about those people because those aren't the people who we invite to the funeral. Okay. Yeah. But where are you? They're having a big funeral. And, in some cultures, the culture I come from, then you have a big meal after the funeral. Okay. Everything, Jewish culture, everything you eat afterwards, that's the culture of eating. Okay. So, yeah, where are you? Where are you? They're having a memorial service about you, talking about how wonderful you are, what a good practitioner you are. You went off and meditated in the mountains for 15 years, eating sampa and a few other goodies, but we don't mention that. And, such a renunciate. And now they died. And such a famous teacher, and now they died. And where are you? Are you enjoying all of this? Now that people are finally appreciating you and praising you, and you have the status you always craved, are you enjoying it? No, you're off in the middle of the bardo, or maybe incarnated, to having taken rebirth in another body. You don't know what's going on here. Yeah. I remember being on pilgrimage in China with some of my friends, and who were Chinese friends, and uh, we were out at some, chai shop in the middle of nowhere, and on the walls of the chai shop, they had pictures of the Gang of Four, who were so famous and important in China. I can't even remember all their names. Definitely Mao must have been one of them. But anyway, somebody can look it up. Then we'll know their names. Yeah, we'll know their names, and that makes them important. We'll know their names. Anyway, they were really famous, really powerful. Okay, in the time when they had power. Okay, when we were in the chai shop, my friends looked at the picture and said, they're all dead now. And what good does their reputation do them? Good question, isn't it? Yeah, people are still looking at their picture in the chai shop, but where are they? You know, what were they reborn as? These people, kind people, a lot of people died under the reign of the Gang of Four. A lot of people died from their policies, from being arrested. Yeah. So you had lots of power, and now you're in who knows what realm as a result of the actions you did here. And even though other people are speaking about you, and some people love you and some people hate you, you're experiencing, you know, maybe you're one of those hell realm beings or hungry ghost beings. Okay. So this is why meditating on death and impermanence is so important in Buddhism. And especially, you know, if you're a monastic, because it helps us keep our mind very clear about what our purpose is and what gives meaning to our life. And it keeps us from getting all tangled up in, you know, oh, somebody praised me and then they insulted me. And this person, you know, oh, I have status as Tupton vacuum cleaner, but somebody else is criticizing me because I missed some of the stuff to vacuum. And somebody else is criticizing me because I didn't empty the vacuum cleaner bag. But somebody else is praising me because I always vacuumed on time. Does any of that really matter? Or what matters? Yeah. What matters is what was the state of our mind when we were vacuuming. Okay. That is what creates the karma, not the vacuum cleaner. Okay. What kind of state of mind did we have when we were vacuuming? Did we have a mind of I'm offering service to the Sangha? You know, I'm part of a group that is here to preserve the Dharma, to share the Dharma with others so that other people can attain awakening. Am I thinking like that? Or am I thinking like, why are they making me vacuum again? They always put me on the rota for this and I don't like it and it's unfair. You know, when you're mad and you vacuum, it shows, doesn't it? You're pushing them. And inside, you're growling as much as the vacuum cleaner is making noise. Yeah. So what's important? It's that your mental state while you're doing that. What's your motivation? Okay. So that is putting us back into what is important. Okay, so we haven't done our recitations yet. And I have 3 questions, and I better answer the questions. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job and people aren't going to talk very well of me. But then when I answer the questions, I may not say that what the other people want me to say. So they might criticize me then. So how am I going to answer these questions so I come out looking good? Okay, is that my motivation? Where does that motivation get me? Yeah, please burn some Bank of Hell notes for me, because that's where I'm going to be if I speak the Dharma with that kind of motivation. Okay. Okay. So the first question is from Juan. Where are you, Juan? Juan is in the top row, second from the left, sitting next to Kenro. Okay. Okay, so Ron is saying, because he listened to Venerable Sangha Khadra's BBC about community, and he said, I thought that a monastic living outside a monastery would be like a fish out of water. Now I learned that it is not a requirement. Is a monastic living alone necessarily on the path of the Pratyeka Buddha, the solitary realizer? And then it continues, the solitary realizer of the Rhinoceros Sutra does not seem lonely to me, but very happy. I assume solitaries were not monastics, but yogis. Monastics found the most happiness and merit in community. Yogis found the most happiness and merit in solitude. Are the Tibetan monastics that go live alone in the mountains still having a monastic life? I'm confused. I am too, Juan. Okay. You're not the only one. So there's a lot of questions in this one question. So let me start at the beginning. A monastic living outside of a monastery would be like a fish out of water. To some extent, that is really true. I think Venerable Sangha Khadrao also spoke about the benefits she receives since living at the Abbey and in community. And I just spoke about the benefits of the monastic community. So some monastics are in a situation where they don't have the opportunity to live in community. In the in Tibetan society, most monastics live in a community, okay, because it helps you keep your precepts, and that's where you get your education and do your practice, and that's where you are part of the rocks in the rock tumbler with your rough edges getting chipped away. Okay, so to that extent, they are like a fish out of water. The situation with Western monastics is something different than it is for the Tibetan monastics. In the Tibetan community, because Buddhism is well established there, when you ordain, and very often it's when you are a little child, then you go into the monastery, and usually your uncle or some relative is there. Okay. And you go into the house where your uncle or whoever it is, they have for them, the family's very extended. They said, it's my brother, but it could be somebody that's a second cousin 4 times removed. And you go live in the house with them. They become kind of like your dad, or in the case of the nuns, like your mom, and they bring you up, and the kamsen, the small houses, are people from the same area in Tibet. So if they have a dialect, you are with people who have the same dialect from the same area in Tibet, even though you are now living as a refugee in India. Okay, and you are provided for by the kamsen. In other words, when the kamsen gets donations, it's shared with people. You can receive personal offerings, and then if you do, you can spend them and have some extra food and extra goodies and things like that. So you have a place, you have a role, you have a place to live, you have a visa, you have a teacher, you have a community right off the bat. Westerners ordain, and like I mentioned yesterday, the Tibetans, the Tibetan lamas, their main thing is to keep their own Tibetan monasteries going, because those people are going to be the lineage holders. They're the ones who speak Tibetan, who memorize the teachings, who debate the teachings, who are going to pass the lineage down. So their focus is on their own community. They're happy to ordain Westerners. They're happy to teach Westerners. But we have to support ourselves. And this is the problem that Western monastics has faced since people started ordaining way back when, in the late 60s, early 70s, okay, is you ordain, and where do you go to live? And where do you practice? Yeah. So in the early days, everybody was in India. My teacher had a group of Westerners at the monastery, and we stayed there. We paid to stay. Um, or you can get ordained. Many people now are ordaining in the West, or they get ordained in Dharamsala and then come back to the West to live. Okay. Then the question is, how do you support yourself? So if you're a monastic who doesn't have much savings, then you usually live at a Dharma center and you have a job and you do your job, and then they give you a small stipend, and that's it. Okay. Other people who have ordained when they're older, or they have savings or whatever, then they can live a different kind of lifestyle. Then some people, uh, you know, their main teacher is the teacher at the Dharma Center in the West, and the Geshis who work in the, who teach in the Dharma centers, uh, they will tell them very often, continue working at your job. Yeah, you have your flat, live in your flat, work at your job. That way you have health insurance, you'll get Medicare, and then come to the Dharma Center a few times a week when the Dharma Center is open and we have classes, and you put on your robes then, and then that time you do some kind of work at the Dharma Center. Okay, but the Dharma Center very often does not support those people. Most of the time, it's up to them to work a job and support themselves. Okay, everybody's situation is different. If you have savings, it's different. You live in your flat, you go to the Dharma Center, but you don't have to work during the day. But you don't get any monastic training. Yeah, because the Dharma centers are established for the lay population, not for monastics. So some Dharma centers, the teachers will give the monastics some teachings on the precepts, but very often that doesn't happen. Okay, and so in that way, if that's the situation you're in, and people often can't control their situation, then in a way it is like being a fish out of water. Okay. Um, and that's one of the reasons why we welcome the three of the monastics that are doing the EML program. Why we welcome you, to be part of our community online, and even better if you can come here and visit us. Okay, but this is the situation, and this is okay. This is not the way it should be. Yeah, this is not the way it should be, but it is the way it is. Shoulds don't matter a whole lot, except they give you something to aim for. But, and what's really disappointing to me is because I ordained in 77, and that was our situation then. We stayed at Kopan. Then later we got kicked out of Kopan because the Nepali government decided we were there too long. So we went to live in Dharamsala. And then again, if we lived at Tushita, we had to pay. If we lived at, there was many people initially lived at Injigompa, we had to, they had to pay. We got teachings galore. It was wonderful. That part was superb, and forever grateful to the Tibetan community and our Tibetan teachers for that, because that's what's really important. But, if you were a rich monastic who had sponsors or savings, you were okay. I was a poor monastic. I had a very different experience. Yeah. So it really, and then when we went to live in France and started Nalanda, started Dorji Palmo, okay, again, we all had to pay to stay there. And we worked, the nuns lived in the horse stables out, the building next, the Dharma Center was in the chateau, and the nuns lived in the horse stables, the next building down. And we worked in the chateau. We often cleaned the lay people's toilets because that was the job we were assigned. And and we had to pay to stay there. The monks had to pay to stay at Nalanda. And the monks are still having to pay to stay at Nalanda now. And this is like 30 years later, 35 years later. Why? Some of them get sponsorship, but I've also heard that some of them are sponsored for a year or two, then their sponsorship gets cut off, and then they disrobe and they go back to their own country. Why is it still like that? Well, people don't understand in the West, they don't understand by and large monastic life. Yeah, and Westerners certainly not. And Westerners in a Protestant culture, everybody has to work hard. And why are you people expecting us to work hard and give you money? Yeah. So it's a very different kind of situation. It is what it is. It should not be like that. And that's one reason why this place was established, was so that people could come and ordain here and not to worry about having to go to work to earn enough money so they could come back and stay here. Because when I lived at Dorji Palmo, there was one nun, she was Swedish. She went back to Sweden every summer and worked a job so that she had the money to stay at the monastery in the autumn. I sewed robes. I got some income that way. Other people, had their family or whatever it was. Okay. And you wound up with, kind of two classes of monastics, those with money and those without money, those who could go to teachings at another Dharma center and those who couldn't afford to go. Okay. So this is, I just find the whole situation so sad, because people ordain with a really good motivation and then they don't have the support. Okay. However, okay, having difficulties and facing hardship is not bad. It's actually, it can be quite beneficial. Okay, because when you have some hardship, then the rubber hits the road. The rubber hits the robe too. And you have to practice. There's no other alternative. Yeah. And so that part is very beneficial, going through some hardship. Okay, so that's the first sentence of your question one. Okay, let me go on. Okay, so you learned that it isn't a requirement. It isn't a requirement, but it is advised. And if you ordain with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, in some years ago, he did establish a requirement that people should live in some kind of community for, I think, 2 or 3 years, 5 years. Okay. Now, that was a requirement for everybody he ordained, but not everybody does that. Okay. So is a monastic living alone necessarily on the path of a Pratyeka Buddha, the solitary realizer? No. Okay. What determines whether you are a hearer, a Shravaka, or a solitary realizer, a Pratyeka Buddha, yeah, or following the Bodhisattva path, is your motivation, not where you live. Okay. So it's your motivation that determines which vehicle you are practicing according to what you want to attain. And that influences also what you practice and the realizations you gain and so on. Okay. So solitary realizer as a vehicle, yeah, are people before their last life. Many of them live in community, but in their last life, they have made an aspiration to be born in a place where there is where no Buddha has descended and given the teachings. Okay. And they say, may I get enlightened in that kind of ambience. And so they practice and, they attain the solitary realizer enlightenment, which is not the same as a bodhisattva's enlightenment. It's arhatship. Okay. In that environment. And then they teach, but they only teach by gestures. They don't teach by giving oral teachings. Okay, so that's a solitary realizer in their last life, how they attain arhatship. Okay. So then you said, the solitary realizer of the Renunciation Sutra does not seem lonely to me, but very happy. So if you have made that aspiration to get enlightened in that thing, you did it because you thought, that's the way you wanted to practice and it was fulfilled. And so you're going to be happy. Now, the question of loneliness, okay, loneliness and being alone are two different things. Okay, you can be alone and be lonely. You can be alone and not be lonely. Okay, being alone means you are living solitarily. Being lonely or having loneliness means that you need more contact with other people to really help you in your practice and in having a happy mind. Okay, so some people like to be alone, some people don't. Okay, some people are not lonely when they're alone. Some people are. Some people like to live with groups. Some people are not lonely when they live with groups, but you can also live with a group and be lonely. If you're not connecting with other people, then you could have gazillion people around you, but you still feel lonely. Okay. So your feeling of loneliness or not has nothing to do with whether you follow the here solitary realizer or bodhisattva path. Okay. Now, okay, then I assume solitaries were not monastics, but yogis. Okay, now the whole thing here about, and this is why I don't blame you at all for being confused, because I'm just as confused. What does monastic mean in the West, and what does yogi mean in the West? Okay. We think that we know what they mean from Asia, but even there, it's not so clear. Who is a yogi? Who is a monastic? And can you be, what are the four the 4 points between yogi and monastic? Is there somebody who's a yogi and a monastic? Yeah. Is there somebody who's a monastic but not a yogi? Yes. Is there somebody who's a yogi but not a monastic? Yes. Is there somebody who's neither? Yep. So what does being a monastic mean? What does being a yogi mean? And what does it mean when you're living in Asia? And what does it mean when you're living in the West? Okay. So let's start with monastic. Yeah. So traditionally, monastic means somebody who took the pratimoksha precepts. Okay. So there are different kinds of monastics. There are fully ordained monastics, male and female. There is a training nun, and then there are novice monastics, male and female. So those 5 are considered monastics. Okay. So far, so good. What about Zen people? When I talk to my Zen friends, because we have conferences every year of a Western monastic gathering in the US, and they're wonderful, and people from all the traditions come. But at some point, we had to say, well, what does a monastic mean in the West? Okay, because there's many different definitions of monastic. What we settled on is somebody who keeps precepts and among those celibacy. Okay. Now, what about Zen people? Okay, because I've asked some of my Zen friends, are you guys monastics or not? I know what I think, what I consider a monastic, and I follow His Holiness along that line. But I follow His Holiness on almost every line. Yeah. But anyway, because Zen people, they don't take the pratimoksha precepts. They have the 16 bodhisattva precepts that they take. And they don't have to be celibate. Yeah. So there's lots of Zen masters who have spouses and even kids. But they wear robes. And some, not all of them, shave their heads. But some are celibate and some aren't. And some wear their robes most of the time, but not all the time. Okay. So I asked that of one of the prominent Zen teachers, and she said, we're still trying to figure that out. We don't know ourselves if we're monastics or not. Okay. Which is fair enough. From my viewpoint, I would usually say it is having the pratimoksha precepts. Okay. But our friends at Shasta Abbey in California, okay, they live in a monastery. They wear their robes all the time. They shave their head, and they are celibate. So I consider them monastics because they live a monastic lifestyle, and they don't have the pratimoksha precepts, but they do have their Zen precepts, and amongst that, they keep celibacy, which I think is really a very important defining difference, because being celibate totally changes your life. And if you don't think it changes your life, then you haven't been celibate, and see how it does change your life. Yeah. Or you've been celibate and you realize, oh, I don't want to change my life like that. Okay. So, yeah. So monastic is different people have different definitions of it. Now, what about a yogi? Okay. Now, usually when, if you read the Tibetan literature, or you read about the Indian Mahasiddhas, okay, you get this image of yogi. It is quite an exotic image. Wow. You are like Milarepa, except you have central heating and aircon. And you eat really well. No, I'm joking, but I'm not sure if I'm joking. Anyway, we read the stories, the yogis, they went off in the wilds, in the jungle, with the wild animals, and they're living alone, and you eat nettles and, you know, maybe some berries that you find and some mushrooms that you find, and you're dirty and your hair is long, and somebody comes up every few weeks and brings you your sampa, and you meditate all day and you are in great samadhi, experiencing bliss. And all the people in the village know that you are up in the mountains, highly realized, experiencing bliss in your samadhi. And we want to be yogis like that, because yogis have realizations. Well, some yogis, is yogi how you look on the outside? Or is yogi your realization on the inside? If you go to the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, and you take and you do a retreat there, your average Westerner, you come off, you know, you take 10 days off of work or a month off of work, you show up, you do a retreat there, you are called a yogi. Okay, so when you're at work in your corner office, you're called something else. Okay, when you are at the retreat center, then you are called a yogi because you're meditating. Okay, is meditating the definition of yogi? How about, is meditating most of the day the definition of yogi? Or I should say, is sitting in meditation posture most of the day the definition of yogi? That's different than meditating most of the day. Okay, they're two different things. Is a yogi somebody who, you know, has a very simple lifestyle and lives out in the wild on their own? Yeah. Is that a yogi? Yeah. What about that guy who I told you about before, who went down to town and got mad at somebody? Now, was he a yogi? Does a yogi mean that you don't keep monastic vows, but you're a householder, but you wear certain kind of robes that look kind of like monastic robes, but they aren't. But they have enough maroon in them so that people may think you're monastics, or at least they know that you're somebody. Okay, so does being a yogi mean you have a white lower robe and like a white upper robe with red stripes in it? Does that mean that you're a yogi? Does a yogi mean you don't have a family? Can't you have a family if you're a yogi? Okay. Does a yogi mean that you appear to be renounced, or does a yogi mean that you have realizations? Those are different. Okay. It's very unclear, you know, what it really means to be a yogi. And there's all different sorts of yogis. Or there's all, I should say, there's all sorts of different people who call themselves yogis. Okay, so you can also be Tuktan yogi. Okay, or Tenzin yogi. What does it mean to be a yogi? Okay. Similarly, what does it mean to be a monastic? If you're not keeping your precepts, there's sometimes monks, I haven't heard of nuns really, But of monks who go off, they have sexual relationships, they come back, they put their robes back on. Are they monastics? They're wearing robes, but according to the Vinaya, no, they are not monastics. And in fact, you create a whole lot of negative karma if you are wearing robes after you have broken your root precepts. Okay, so it's not so clear what these terms mean. Yeah, because you can be a monastic who has tantric realizations and live in a monastery. You can be a monastic who has realizations who doesn't live in a monastery. You can be a yogi who has a family and you live with your family and you teach. Or you can be a yogi who is that very exotic one living out somewhere in the woods. So what I'm getting at is it's not so important what your title is. Okay, what is more important is what's happening in your mind and your level of practice. And nobody else knows that, yeah, except you and your teacher. So, these things are really internal, not external, how you look. Okay, that was the first question. I think I better stop because we've gone over time. Okay, so Venerable Maytok and Yenny, I'll answer your questions tomorrow. Okay.